Oh, hello, YouTube. Hi, it's future Amanda here, and I just want to pop in and say hello because this is one of my favorite videos. I really enjoy doing drunk classics. They're fun to make, the books are fun to read. Well, sometimes, it. I read them. But anyway, in this episode, I got drunk and I read Pride and Prejudice, so you don't have to. And yeah, without further ado, here you go. Strap in. It's going to be a journey. So it's 8:30 at night, and I have read 0% of Pride and Prejudice. I don't know. I had the book out, and I was gonna start, and I had been drinking a little bit, and then I was just like, I had no interest in doing it. So instead, I watched The Craft. You know that movie? Like the polar opposite of Pride and Prejudice. So that's what I've been doing. But I felt bad about it. So I'm going to read for like a little bit. Just so I'm not a failure. So here it goes. It's starting. This is glass number 4. And I managed to read 100 pages. Nothing has happened. It's just, I think alternate title could be snobbery and sarcasm. That's basically what it is. Like, Darcy's like grumpy and just a snob, I think is the main problem. He's just snobby and doesn't know no better. So Bingley is just like full himbo. And like part of me like respects it. I'm like, okay, like I'm down for a himbo. Like he and Jane can just go, be dummies in love. Like I'm fine with it. But yeah, nothing's happened. It's about 100 pages in. Jane got cold, and then Elizabeth walked through the mud and came and hung out with her sick sister who was staying at Bingley's house while she was sick. And then everyone's like, oh, look at her. I guess her face is okay, but she has no money. And they all grabbed their monocles and tittered themselves. Strangely enough, my favorite character is Mr. Bennet, their dad. He's the best. He has the most sarcastic lines of anything. He's just like, yeah, I'm just flooded with women. This is how I survive. He's the best. He's like fun grumpy. I love him. I just want to read all about Mr. Bennet. Like, he's great. He needs a bigger part of this book because he's just sassy and I like him. I guess Elizabeth is the closest to Mr. Bennet, so I think I like her the best, which I'm supposed to because she's the main character. And then you have like the younger Bennets who are just like all trying to hook a soldier. They're just like, oh, the soldier's in town? Like, hello. They're all just boy crazy. And it's like, I guess that wasn't a common affliction since forever. Fucking Darcy. Like, he's just like, I'm like, do you not understand humans? Like, he's just so, like, I don't think he understands how to person. So, there's that. And then Bingley's a himbo. And they're best friends somehow. Oh, you know what? I never mentioned Mr. Collins. Their cousin who showed up. Who's like the ass kisser supreme. You know, Sorcerer Supreme? He's ass kisser supreme. That's who he is. He's like the Doctor Strange of ass kissing. Yeah, he shows up and he's just like a fool, and like everyone sees it, and it's just like part of me is just like, okay, you know what, if you're gonna be a fool, be the most foolish. Like he's like living his best life, but like, oh my word, like bro, you need to read the room, and he can't do it. Fucking Mr. Collins, like it's just a lot. And here's the thing, I've read this in a lot of like, books of the Regency period, in general, old-timey times. Like, why was everybody like trying to marry their cousin? Like, were there not enough people? Like, Mr. Collins is their cousin, I think a distant cousin, And he's supposed to inherit the estate after their dad dies because, you know, you can't give it to girls. And surprisingly, Mrs. Bennet pretty woke. She's like, why can't my girls have the estate? Blah, blah, blah. So, anyway, Mr. Collins, he's like, hey, I'm going to come. Oh, while I'm here, I'll just pick one of them. That one. I'll take that one as my wife. Like, he doesn't understand how to person either, but, like, for other reasons. It's like every suitor that Elizabeth has is like an alien who came to Earth and is trying to figure out how to be a human being to varying degrees of success. Like, Darcy's going the grumpy route, Collins is going the idiot route, and then there's like Mr. Wickham, who's like, I don't know enough about him yet, but he seems just shady. Like, I don't know. He's like, oh, I know him. He's sassy and he took my money. And it's like, like, if Darcy's dad was your godfather, like, shouldn't you have money? Because they are the snobbiest snobs who ever snobbed. Like, why would be hanging out with, like, some poor kid? Like, he would be, like, godfather to, like, a rich kid. So it's, like, weird that you're worried about getting that money because you should have your own money. So obviously there are plot holes in his big story. But yeah, all of Lizzie's suitors are aliens trying to become people. There you go. That's what I've got. It is day 2 of Pride and Prejudice Drunks Classics. Back on the couch, in my nook, getting ready to read. I figured I could read like another 100 pages. And then I'll just finish reading it other days. And this is all of that Chenin Blanc I have left, so it's a very big glass of wine. So I figured I just won't have to get up. But really, I think this is probably 2 glasses in 1 cup. I'm an efficient drinker. So anyway, here goes nothing. Okay, so I have 1 glass in and like about 40 pages in. So there are some things afoot here. Mr. Collins has now proposed to Lizzie, and she's like, no, like, ew. It's basically her reaction. No, ew, you're gross. And he's just like, are you flirting with me? How does he not understand how to person? Anyway, so he's just like, oh, it's okay, I'll just ask again. And she's like, bruh, like, I'm going to keep saying no. And he's just like, are you? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, wait, I think you mean it. And she's like, yeah. And Mr. Bennet, her father, is still my favorite character. He has to put up with Mrs. Bennet, the mom, who is just, like, frankly a lot to deal with. And he's just like, okay. The whole time just overwhelmed, but just like, okay, well, you'll tire yourself out eventually. I just like Mr. Bennet. He's, like, so sarcastic. I love him the best. But, hey, heads up, Charlotte, Elizabeth's friend from town, and, like, earlier, like, Charlotte would, like, get Mr. Collins' attention. She's, like, being a good friend. She's like, Lizzie obviously hates this. Like, hey, I'll take this friendship bullet. And she started talking to him. Turns out, Mr. Collins is like, oh, she actually talks to me. I'm going to go propose to Charlotte. And Charlotte's like, yeah, okay. She accepted. And they kind of wrote in the story that she doesn't really much esteem men or marriage, but she needs to, like, get herself a husband just, you know, for security, because she's into that. So I'm like, she's very practical, but, like, everyone's like, Charlotte, girl, are you okay? Like, all of them are like, are you okay? Like, do you need help? Blink twice for yes. It's funny. They're just like, girl, what happened to Charlotte? Like, they are just, like, baffled by the situation. And then Bingley left, and Jane is, like, so, like, mature, I would say, of all the Bennets. She's just like, yeah, you know, if he likes me, he'll come back, and if he doesn't actually like me, then of course he's gonna go off and find some other woman. She's kind of like woke about the whole thing, and Lizzie's just like, nah, I'm about to cut a motherfucker. So I really like Lizzie and Jane's relationship, and then there's a bunch of other sisters who are just boy crazy, except for Mary, who I like low key think is on the spectrum. Is it just me, or does like Mary seem like she has a neurodivergency? She doesn't really pick up on social situations either. So I don't know. It's like an interesting tidbit I've picked up as a modern reader. Like maybe there wasn't like an idea of neurodivergency in that time period of Jane Austen. But yeah, so I think Mary is kind of on the spectrum, actually. Okay, so I just finished chapter 29, about to start chapter 30. And we finally meet Lady Catherine de Bourgh, who, like, Mr. Collins has just had, like, the biggest boner for since forever. He's always like, Lady Catherine, blah, blah, blah. He's just so obsessed with Lady Catherine. And she shows up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, having to spend a fucking evening with this woman. You just want to, like, pluck your own eyeballs out just to feel something. Like, she's also the worst. But there was this one moment at the end of chapter 29 where she and her daughter were like done playing games for the night, and they all gathered around Lady Catherine to hear her to proclaim what the weather would be for the next day. And it's like, does she control the weather? Like, they're all like, Lady Catherine, tell us what the weather for the next day. Like why is she the expert on this? Like, it's such a stupid thing that I had to stop reading and talk about, but like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, what? Oh, I've never like experienced like being so, I don't know, influential that people will come to me to know the weather. So side note on that, Mr. Collins and Charlotte got married, and so like Lizzie and Jane go to London to like hang out and like visit, and then like she still hasn't seen Bingley, and she's like, I'm thinking Bingley's a dick. And then Jane is like, well, maybe he's not a dick, but like I'm counting on him being a dick. And like Lizzie's just like, oh, that dick. So that's where they are with him. And like they haven't talked about Darcy like at all. So I was expecting a lot more interactions between Lizzie and Darcy, because like so far this like middle section there hasn't been a lot of like interactions. They just been parted, so who knows? Something's going on. Oh my gosh. I was literally like gasping out loud. Like I kind of knew it was coming, but oh my word, you guys, chapter 34. Chapter 34. Oh my word, like gasps. Like also in my head, like Single Ladies by Beyonce is playing, and like it works. Go with me on this. So, chapter 33. Lizzie finds out it was Darcy who said shit to Bingley, and he's like, hey Bingley, like don't get with Jane, like I don't like her, she's not good, her mom is a crazy person. Like he said all this shit, and then Lizzie finds out from like his cousin, Darcy's cousin, that like he said shit, and she's like, oh hell no, like Lizzie is not having it. And then the next chapter, Darcy shows up, and it was just like, hey, you're stupid and you're poor, and like everybody thinks you're stupid and poor, but like I like you anyways, want to get married? And she's like, fuck you. And it's like, I mean, they obviously don't use those terms, but like it's the worst proposal of any proposal. He's just like, listen, like I think you're stupid and poor and you're not that pretty, and like everyone else thinks that, but like I still like you somehow. Do you want to get married? Like he thinks like negging her is gonna like be impressive at this point. And Lizzie's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, first of all, this is a terrible proposal. You just like insulted me like 8 times, and it was just like, well, against my better judgment, I still like you. It's like, oh well, let me do you a favor here. You don't have to marry me because fuck you. Second of all, you fucked over my sister, so even if I did like you, I would still say no because fuck you. And then she goes on this all this other stuff, and Mr. Darcy just like, I see you, you know how I am. She's like, yeah, because you're a fucking dick. And he's like, okay, and then he like leaves. Oh my word, you guys, like I was gasping. Like I could only picture like Regency era Amanda also being like, gasp. I mean, it's the most polite anger that I've ever seen because there's no swear words at all. It's just Lizzie being like, listen, like, let me tell you some shit. And Darcy being like, I have never been told shit before. I'm rich. Like, what? And she's like, listen, like, I don't give a fuck. And I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with it so much. I can't even. Oh, my word. Like, you guys. Okay. So, I mean, yes, I'm at the cliffhanger point of this book, but I'm going to take a break for a little bit because I am, like, drunker than I anticipated being. Hello, it's a new day. I'm going to be continuing my Pride and Prejudice drunkathon. And hey, look at this setting. Look at these pretty lights. Isn't this crazy? Yes, it is, because my boyfriend built me a pillow fort. So there's like, he put in an LED light strip. So there's light in my pillow fort. I'll show you around. Here is my pillow fort. And then I got a little tray, so I have a little cup holder for my wine. And it's like a full fort in here. I am obsessed with it. I'm so excited. I've always wanted a pillow fort, and then I got one. He's killing the boyfriend game, everybody. Just saying. So I wasn't sure when I should, like, film an update on this in my Nook. But I've had a glass and a half of wine, and this was the first gasp I've done so far today. I have been gasping at this book, and I enjoy the sheer melodramaticness of my, like, I love gasping. It's so fun. Like, have you ever just gasped at things when you're reading? It's like, it's an enjoyable experience. So anyway, Lizzie, where I last talked to you guys, she just said, fuck you, Darcy. And he's like, fine. And then the next day he finds her and he's like, here's a letter, bye. And then she reads it and she's like, oh wait, like maybe Darcy isn't a dick, because he like explained all of his behavior. He's like, yeah, you know what, maybe I did tell what's his name, the himbo, his friend, was it Willoughby? Who's his name? I forget already. He's like, yeah, I did tell him that Jane wasn't like super into him, because like, is she? Like, she doesn't like appear all that into him. She's nice, but like, she's nice to a lot of people. So like, I wasn't sure if she liked him. So yeah, I told my friend what I thought, like, deal with it. And then he's just like, and Wickham, let me tell you, bitch, he is a dickhole. Like, he is mean, and he tried to fuck my sister. And then Lizzie's like, oh no, like, oh no. And you're just like, and listen, lady, like, your family, legit lunatics. Like, have you met them? Because I have. And then for like a lot of pages, it gets a little boring because just Lizzie going around saying like, you know, now that I look at my sisters, they are kind of legit lunatics. Like, Lydia is just a lot to deal with. She is just like so flirty all the time that she's like insane. And then Kitty just will do anything Lydia does. And then you have Mary, who's just like, I like books, which Mary's just chilling. She's nobody's problem. But like, Lydia's gonna get into some shit. Oh no, because they made a big point of saying how like imprudent she is. So I'm like, oh, Lydia, you're gonna do some shit, I know it. Let's get to the gasp factor. So, mind you, I have been drinking, so small details have escaped me right now, but that's okay. So Lizzie, she's with her aunt and uncle, and they're traveling around, and they're at Pemberley, which is Mr. Darcy's house. They're gonna stay there. I don't know why they're staying at his house when Mr. Darcy isn't there. Is this a hotel? Is this something that like minor nobility just does? They just go to each other's houses and stay there, like uninvited. It was so weird. But anyway, so they're walking around the house, they're looking at pictures, and all like the servants in the house are like, hey, like Darcy's cool. Like he's real nice. He pays us nicely, and he's like not mean. Like he's like a good like master of the house. And Lizzie's like, you know what? Maybe he is. Oh no, I was wrong. And then I gasped because Darcy just showed up, and they like had like a moment of them like seeing each other like across the way, and their like eyes met, and I was like, gasp. They like had a long moment of seeing each other across a field, and I was like, oh shit. And I stopped reading to tell you about my gasp. I'm very excited to see where this goes. Gasp number 2. Okay. So here I am reading along, doing my thing. Okay, so Lizzie, she's at Pemberton. She's hanging out with Darcy. Everybody likes Darcy. And she's like, oh, Darcy's kind of like nice now. Like, I'm feeling Darcy. Like, she's like really into him. And I'm like, yes, just kiss already. I just want to push their little faces together. But anyway, that's not what I gasped about. So remember Wickham, the dickhole? He was like, sup, Lydia? Remember Lydia, the idiot? They ran off together because apparently Wickham likes to fuck kids, because Lydia's like 15 and so was Darcy's sister. Why is he like 15-year-olds so much? So they ran off, and then like the colonel's even like, hey, listen, lady, I know he's part of my like troop, but like Wickham's a dickhole. Like, I don't know if they're getting married. They took off. No one can find him. And finally the dad, who is very like just whatever about everything, like he took off, and he's like, he's gonna murder a motherfucker. So I'm like, oh no. And then like Jane is like, Lizzie, you gotta come home because some shit is happening. Wickham took off with Lydia, and they're missing. Like, he's taken her somewhere to do things to her, and she is a child. Damn it, Wickham, stop trying to fuck kids. Like, anyway, so Lizzie's just like, oh no, like she just heard about this. Hello. It is a new day. I am going to be finishing Pride and Prejudice today, as well as finishing what's left of that bottle of wine. So it's a day of completion. I'm very excited. I think last night when I was reading, I've decided I'm just gonna pause when I gasp, because I feel like that's like a good time to stop and reflect on what's happening. So yeah, I'm gonna finish it. I'm really excited about it. Let's go. Lydia, she ran off with Wickham, and apparently they were like shacking up for like several months, and then like I didn't know that she actually married Wickham. Like, oh man, Lydia, like I have rolled my eyes so hard every time Lydia opens her stupid mouth that I feel like I've like sprained my eyeballs. Like, I hate her. I think maybe she and Wickham are perfect for each other because they're both just like fucking reprobates. Ugh. He is probably 30 years old and he married a 16-year-old. I mean, in that time period, it was probably fairly common, but still, ew, gross. But they actually got married, and Lydia is just, like, my eyeballs hurt from rolling them. But, like, obviously Darcy had to have done something. He showed up. He's just, like, now, like, he was so grumpy before and mean, and now he's just like, no, I'm so gallant. I'm a white knight riding in to save your sister, and, like, paying off this guy who's a dickbag. But, like, I paid him to marry your sister, because she's too stupid to know any better, so... Oh, man. Chapter 56! Lizzie, at it again with the zingers. I fucking love Lizzie. She's just like, bitch, please. Okay, so, Lady Catherine, Darcy's, like, aunt, I guess. She shows up, and she's like, ew, you're gross, your family's gross, you're poor, I don't think you're pretty, what the fuck, you ain't gonna marry my nephew, he's gonna marry my daughter, which, by the way, first cousin, ew. Like, why are you so up on getting cousins married to each other? I realize cousins married a lot in England in this time period, but it's like, stop fucking your first cousins, for goodness sakes. But anyway, so Lady Catherine shows up and she's being a bitch, and Lizzie's just like, oh hell no. Lizzie is not putting up with it. She's like, I'm not sorry, I'm not engaged to him, but like if he showed up here and asked, like, I'm not gonna say no. And she's like, oh, no one's ever turned me down. And she's like, well, it's about to happen. Like, Lizzie's just being so sassy back, and she doesn't give a fuck. I am obsessed with Lizzie. I wish I had read this book sooner and more often. I fucking love Lizzie so much. She's great. For the Regency era too. This was written in the Regency era about Regency era ladies, and I'm like, Lizzie Bennet, fucking baller. I love her. Love is in the air. Bingley's back. Jane's like, oh, I love Bingley again, and Bingley's like, oh, you're really hot. And then they're both very nice. They're both very nice and very hot. And that's like the basis of their like a whole relationship. But I mean, there's been worse matches, like Lydia and Wickham, like, oh gosh, that is a dumpster fire of people and union. But like, you know what, Bingley and Jane, they're both hot and nice. Like, okay, why not? They'll make pretty babies, I guess. Okay, I've officially finished Pride and Prejudice and my wine like a champ. It's just like a big happy ending, and you know what? I'm such a sucker for the cheese. Like, I'm so happy. So, like, of course, Lizzie and Darcy get married, and, like, Darcy, he was like, you know what? I heard you. It was a shitty proposal. You were right. I'm gonna be a better person because I do love you. And, like, he did a bunch of stuff, like, some real love stuff. He didn't even know if she was ever going to, like, love him back, but he still did it because he loved her, and I'm just gonna cry. I love it so much. It's just like, I get it now. Like, I knew like the Darcy Elizabeth thing, it's like a ship of all ships, and like I hadn't actually read it, and now I'm just so like, I'm in love with their love. Anyway, I'm trying not to cry about it because it was so sweet. And then, of course, like, Lydia and Wickham are pieces of shit still, like, forever. And basically, they're like, yeah, so that fell apart quick. That was actually put into the book. They're like, yeah, that's not working. And I'm like, really? No shit. And then you still have Kitty, who, like, away from Lydia, kind of, like, okay. Like, Kitty, like, Lydia's a bad influence. And then Mary is just Mary. But I kind of low-key think Mary's on the spectrum, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, Lizzie and Darcy forever. I love it. I have finally officially read Pride and Prejudice. Officially. And I'm very glad I did. I don't know why I hadn't read it. I just kind of felt like I wouldn't like it for some reason. Because it's like, you know, that era, I'm like, how prim and proper is it going to be? Because like all the historicals I read, they're not like prim and proper. Like, that's my least favorite kind of thing. And this was, you know, very prim and proper. It was written during the Regency era, but like sassy, it was so sassy. Like, it's not smutty, obviously, but like it's so sassy, and I'm into it. And I truly enjoyed it. 5 stars. I want to read more stuff by Jane Austen now. Like, who am I? Who am I? All right, so that is Pride and Prejudice. I've finished it. I'm very excited about it. I feel like I've gone on a journey for this, because you know what, I space it out. I didn't like cram it into one day. I like space it out over several days, and I really savored it. So overall, good experience. I had fun with it. I honestly can't wait to read more Jane Austen. What is going on here? Anyway, so I guess let me know in the comments. What's your favorite Jane Austen book? I mean, I've only read Pride and Prejudice so far, but I do intend on reading more. So let me know in the comments down below, what are your faves? If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.